I wanna do now is making it last. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever, strengthening the ties that keep us together. Mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers, friends forever, strengthening the ties that keep us together.
How can I identify the signs of emotional abuse to ensure healthy relationships? That's what we'll be talking about this time around. This is Making It Last podcast, and I'm Noreen Daly, and with me is my friend Eva Forde, social worker, author, and just so much more. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you, Noreen Daly, friend. Not foe, friend. How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Wonderful.
Good. All right, we're going to have this conversation because a lot of times people are so quick to talk about physical abuse because I think sometimes that is easier to identify. Mm-hmm. And of course, if you're being physically abused, people are quick to, get out of a relationship. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I believe emotional abuse is just to some degree maybe subtle. Mm-hmm. So I just want to help us to have that conversation to help to educate others and even, and myself, how we can identify, some signs so we know. And of course, a lot of times people think that abuse will only happen in man-woman relationship, but this is also in the context of family, friendships.
Absolutely. And, although I do work within the behavioral sciences and do a lot of personal development myself and coach on that, when you asked me about this, I actually had to kind of pull it up online just to make sure I was clear on how to speak about the topic. So one of the things that I became present to is what emotional abuse is not, because sometimes people will say, you hurt my feelings, you've been emotionally abusive. And what they've said is, hey, maybe that blouse doesn't go with that pants. So that is not emotional abuse. So it's not emotional abuse if, you may be in an argument with someone, just generally. It's not emotional abuse even if it may be heated and there's yelling. When emotional abuse is defined as the putting down of someone. So when you're deliberately trying to control and manipulate or hurt someone with words. That's what we call emotional abuse, I should say. Sorry about that. So, and the difference between, I'll say the similarity between physical abuse is physical abuse, same thing. You're trying to hurt someone. You're trying to intimidate someone. You're trying to control someone. Same thing with emotional abuse, just doing it with words.
Okay. Now you said it's putting down and control or manipulate. No, let's take this closer home. You said if it is that somebody basically just said something to somebody and they're saying that hurt me. Yes, it is going to be hurt in some form or fashion. So how then do I then cross that line into it being abuse?
So you will recall, every time I come on here, I talk about people having to take responsibility for their own perceptions and for their own reactions, right? So I think we would all be so much better if we were emotionally intelligent enough to be able to, just be honest with ourselves about whatever is being said and our perceptions and how we're taking that. So I can be honest with myself and say, hey, my mom got me this shirt. I really love this shirt. And it hurt when someone said it because I like the shirt and I want other people to like the shirt. I can be, honest with myself and say that. I can also be honest and say that it's emotionally abusive if someone that I care about or someone that proclaims to care about me says, while I'm in this shirt, says, you sound or you look as ignorant as you sound wearing that shirt.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can recognize that one is, okay, that's me being sensitive. And that the other is, no, that person is a jerk. They're trying to hurt me. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. Okay. You did. But somebody is listening and saying, but I get that a lot from people. So is it that I've been putting up with a lot of
putting up with a lot of abuse
without even realizing it?
So you know what? Let's give some cultural context.
Okay.
Because as our listeners may identify, my accent is not Jamaican. I wasn't raised here. My family is Jamaican. My mom's side of the family is Jamaican, but was not raised here, was not raised in the Jamaican culture. So it was shocking to me when I got here and people are saying, you're ugly like, Saturday night at after market,
Okay.
And that's shocking to me. That's so rude and absolutely emotionally abusive. If that ever happened to me, I'd go in my room and cry and, have a low self-esteem. But I recognize that here in Jamaica, it seems to be those sometimes seem to be, terms of endearment. So it's interesting, right? And I think that in Jamaica, we have, again, I don't want to take anything away from our culture because I think it's beautiful and it's wonderful. It's fun and funny and lively and everything. But I think it can be dangerous. Okay. Especially in this age of, you have cyberbullying and you have a lot of people that feel that they can say whatever they want to because maybe no one's going to check them. No one's going to, say anything to them. And people can absolutely end up being hurt. So I think it's important for us to consider the intent with which something is said.
Okay.
And also, if a person does feel like, hey, is this emotional abuse? And they might not be sure. They can have a conversation with maybe people who love them and care about them around them. And they can also, I think, try to be as self-aware as possible and separate what a joke might be from what's intended to actually put them down and kill their spirit.
You mentioned the whole idea of a cultural context. So how then do you have a conversation with somebody who, for them, this is how I show how I feel about you. I, in terms of my
this is how I care about you.
Yeah, this is how I care about you. So, how do you then say to somebody, I really feel as if you're bordering on being emotional. I'd hope that you don't do this, but to them, it's not a problem. So,
yeah.
What then?
Yeah. So this is so broad, right? Because this could play out in a million different ways with different people in different circumstances. So I would, just say to our listeners, if you find yourself in a situation like that, to the extent that you can, protect your space, protect your emotional space. That might mean not being around that person so much. That might mean saying to the person, look, this really does bother me. It might mean getting some thick skin and learning how to joke back. Okay. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
It doesn't just mean curl up in a ball. It might be that, hey, I know this person is, doesn't mean to tear me down. This is what they know, and this is how they maybe, show that we're connected and they actually do like me. But I don't like it. So because this person's not able to hear me, I just have to protect my space and, find new friends, find new family. Not spend so much time with them.
Okay. You said something though that I definitely wanted to just elaborate on a bit before we close. The whole idea of being self-aware, I think, is one of the key ways that you can then know if you are being emotional. How then do I engender this whole idea of self-awareness?
Right. So, selfless plug. I've written a book about this whole thing. It's called How Not to Practice Social Work. Because I was coming as a social work from a social work perspective. However, it's kind of a Trojan horse because the contents of the book are about ways to be self-aware and how not to practice social work or how not to do anything. It's just about making sure that before you try to help someone else, you make sure you help yourself. Make sure you're getting help for yourself. So I tell people, look, I have a therapist. I have tons of friends that I talk to if I'm feeling either stressed or concerned, or I'm not sure what to do with some information that might, be critical. I have people that I talk to. That's one of my mechanisms and skills. I'm self-aware enough to know that I can't figure everything out on my own. My emotions, I can't trust them all the time.
Right.
So this self-awareness thing, I think it's so important. And there's tons of tools that people can use. I always say, hey, stop and ask yourself, what judgment am I making about this situation? If I have an emotion, that's disappointment. Maybe I'm disappointed about something. I ask myself the question, what's my expectation? Because I can't be disappointed without an expectation.
Right.
I can't be hurt without an expectation. I can't be, let down without expecting something else. So if I'm expecting someone I did a good job. I was expecting someone to say you did a good job. So they didn't. So now I'm hurt. Or I was expecting when this person saw me to say that I look beautiful. Instead, they said, how you look so. And so now I'm hurt, right? So self-awareness for me is checking myself first. Okay. What was my expectation? So that's one thing. And recognizing that God's greatest gift to humanity and to me personally is the gift of choice. I can choose my thought in every moment. So I can choose to be offended. I can choose to be let down. I can choose to be, excited. I can choose to be amused. I can, I have choice, not only in my thought, but based on my choice in thought, my emotion will follow.
Right. We've said a lot, and we're talking about how can I identify the signs of emotional abuse to ensure a healthy relationships.
Kind of got off that topic.
as we're wrapping up, because you said several things, and you started out by saying emotional abuse is really when you're putting down or trying to control or manipulate somebody with words. Now, we mentioned several other things, but if there is only one thing that you want our listeners to get, what's that one sign?
One sign when there's emotional abuse.
One sign or two.
I would say, and can I give a little scenario?
That's fine.
Brief scenario. I was in a relationship at one point. Now I have master's level training in social work. And the person I was dating at the time, who was older than me and I thought would have been more mature and comfortable with me, one day said, you have a master's degree. Why don't you use that? And his intent was to belittle me and put me down, right? We were talking about something and we were disagreeing about something. And he used the fact that I had this degree to insult me. That was his intent. And when he said that, I said, oh, so this is where it gets real and not healthy. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Again, this was somebody I cared about, but recognizing that their intent was to put me down, even with something that I was so proud of, was a warning sign to me.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know that there's, just one thing, but I would say to persons, you won't recognize, or you might not recognize emotional abuse unless you're self-aware and you love yourself.
That's right.
Enough for your ears to kind of perk up and for, when that alarm goes off, you say, you know what, this doesn't feel like love.
That's right.
This doesn't feel like what I'm used to. This doesn't feel like what I'm accustomed to. And the sad thing is that many of us are raised in environments where we're told that that's love, or that's all we see. So we assume that just because people are around, they love us. But again, you've got to love yourself.
That's right.
Got to be self-aware. And anytime you get a sense that somebody's not loving you as well as they should, check it out and take some steps back.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're
Such a
welcome.
note to end on. Love yourself. It was Making It Last podcast with Noreen Daly, and it was all about how we can identify the signs of emotional abuse to ensure healthy relationships. Until next time.
I loving you. Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.